Hello and welcome to the first episode of that Atleti Podcast. So excited to be here with you. I'm Jeremy Beren. I'm joined by Ricky Menéndez. I told you on YouTube you were going to meet him today, and here he is. How are you, my friend?
Hello. Nice to see you, man. What time is it over there? Here it's close to
4:10
midnight.
4:10 p.m. Central here in scenic
4:10
Fayetteville,
p.m.
Arkansas.
It's gonna be hard to find the correct slot sometimes, but we'll try our best.
We're doing
How
our
are you
best, man.
doing?
I'm good. I'm really excited about this project. I'm really excited to be here with you. It's something that we've been discussing on and off for the last few months, and now it's coming to fruition, man.
So many exciting things to talk about, and I mean, not only the current affairs, but all of the history of the club, and just creating a community to bring the fan base together, as your post on Instagram said. It's an opportunity for all of us to knit a closer communion and create that sense of bonding that we can take with both receiving people here in Madrid, which is sunny again after so many weeks of intense rain, or on away days when Atletico goes around the world. Atletico is heading towards the US in summer, so that's going to be exciting. I hope we find some time to talk about that. We've got some exciting guests today, and we've got like a lineup for the following weeks of interesting people that we want the entire Atleti community, the English-speaking Atleti community, to meet and know more about, because they're assets of this living history that the fan base creates, and just here to in Spanish they say hacer Atleti, which is to create a bigger bond in the Atleti family, and let's do this.
That's poetic, man. I love that. It's so
Exactly.
poetic.
Hacer Atleti. That's a catchphrase for today. You have short Spanish lessons for free.
All right, well, let's take a couple of minutes and introduce ourselves, people listening who may not be as familiar with me or with you, and then we'll bring on our guests. As you said, a pretty exciting lineup for today. Yes. You want to start? You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm thrilled to start. I started covering Atletico in 2010. I was just a regular season ticket holder. Wasn't very happy with the coverage, and I started a small blog called Eso es Atleti with a group of friends, and very soon it started as a sort of podcast, but it transitioned towards a website, and we held that the reins of that website for around 12 years. The current owners of that site, Eso es Atleti, have nothing to do with this. At the same time we started the podcast in Spanish, I got to meet at the press conferences covering Atletico week in, week out, the English-speaking community, like the correspondents from The Guardian or other newspapers or media, the foreign media that covered Atlético de Madrid. Very interesting fellow that I met was Gary Nunn. I tried to have Gary today, but his parenting duties it didn't allow him to be on the podcast. I hope he can join us on the show soon. He had an early rise tomorrow, something to do with his kids' football match or whatever, or soccer match. You know how that goes when you're parenting small kids, and it was really impossible to make ends meet. But we'll have him sooner or later on the show. Gary had a site called Madrid-Atléticos, and what I realized soon is that there was this niche, even more niche than what we are nowadays. And you talked about that community of Atletico followers. I met Dani Hidalgo at one of the press conferences of Simeone, one of the first press conferences of Simeone. That was really exciting because even though he was working for us and he was covering Spanish media, he's also American like you and me, and he's Washingtonian, or at least he's a Washington Commanders fan. I don't know if he's originally from Washington. I know that currently he's based more in the Florida area. And it was also exciting to meet people from another website called AtléticoFans, and that's like a small sneak peek of what we're going to talk about in this first episode. That niche Atletico community in English that has been roaming and that has been trying to find its path for the last, I would say, 15 years, solidly growing. And as some projects come to an end and sort of die or sunset, as they say nowadays, others emerge and others rise as new suns. So it's a dawn for projects like ours, and it's exciting to have this fresh start. But it's also important to know where we come from and to know all of these people that have held the community together for such a long time.
Yeah, it's woven within the fabric of not only of what we're writing about, what we're talking about on this podcast today, but the history of the club and the past, the present, and the future, where we want to go from here. Just very quickly about myself before we invite our two guests onto the pod for what is surely going to be a fantastic four-way debate. I got my start a few years after you did. I joined into the Calderón on the SB Nation network of blogs in September 2015. My friend Robbie Dunn invited me on. I owe a lot to him. He gave me my start at SB Nation and into the Calderón, and I've been running the site for the past 8 seasons or so. And through that time, Atletico have obviously grown a lot, and I've been very fortunate to have hopped on the train at the right time. We have a small staff at Into the Calderón, but a very dedicated staff, and I've done what I can. We've done what we can to sort of bridge that gap between the Spanish-speaking Atleti fans, such a rich collection of people, such a passionate fan base, one of the most passionate around the world, I would say. Having watched Atletico on TV for the first time in December 2012 when Falcao scored 5 goals against Depor.
Oh wow!
That was my intro to Atleti.
I'll tell you a story about that game some other time.
Yeah. Just watching on TV and then going to Spain. I never got to see them at the Calderón, but I got to see Atletico play at the Metropolitano, and that will have to do. Pretty spectacular stuff. But we've done what we can over the past 9 years that I've been there to bridge this gap, and more English-speaking fans are hopping on the train and realizing that being part of Atletico is something special. It's very easy to support Real Madrid and Barcelona. It's not as easy, but it is very there's a certain glamour and a romance and a sentiment to supporting Atletico. I think that's fair to say. It's not for everyone.
It's very rewarding, I think.
Very rewarding. Winning a title here is 10 times more special than winning one at Madrid or Barca. So without further ado,
we get our fair share. We do. Not the lion's share, but we do get our fair share.
A fair share. It's been a few years, and hopefully we're charting a course back towards silverware. I was hopeful that this year maybe we could snag the Copa del Rey, maybe even fight for La Liga, but unfortunately wasn't meant to be. But I do like where we're heading, and I think we're going to talk all about that with our guests. I'm inviting Dani Hidalgo and Nic Lawley into the show. They should be joining us momentarily.
So excited. I haven't seen Nic in ages.
Well, there he is. Nic, how are you?
Hello. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Great to meet you. Great to see you.
Likewise.
Danny, so good to see you.
There's Danny, the man himself.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
This is great.
Look at us. Here we are.
Here we are. Exactly.
A celebration, a new beginning.
I see I'm the only one who dressed up for the event.
Because you're the elegant fellow, man. You're the elegant one. I got the exact same jacket that Nic has.
It's a beauty.
I love that one.
It's a beauty.
Yeah.
It's a great one, but unfortunately, all it says Club Atlético de Madrid on the back, and that's gone completely.
It's gone.
Front-facing camera. This is great.
Gosh. So what we were doing in this first show, we were talking a little bit about the community. I don't know, Danny, if you know this, but you got me back into watching NFL because we had such long waits in the Vicente Calderón damp press conference room.
Yeah.
I remember that you would watch you would watch what was it? It was Red Zone Live. No, it was you would watch games while we were waiting for the next coach or the player to come into the press room, and just watching you watch the games created that craving in me, and ever since then I've been following the NFL. So Atletico brought me back to my 49ers, and so did you. Of course, you're the main man for that.
Very cool, man. Very cool to hear. You must have loved it when they hung out with the Kittle and all that stuff.
That was great. Yeah. We've had our summer runs, and I would like the two of you to talk about your connection to different projects that have revolved around Atletico. I know Dani has reported about Atletico a ton from Spain and from abroad, and Nic had this beautiful project going on for a very, very long time, which I think is one of the pillars of this community that we're trying to rekindle and boost and bring to a new height. So I would like to give the floor to the two of you and have everybody know about what your merits are, which are there's a very long service sheet there, and just give you the floor, guys.
Well, Dani, I think you were first chronologically, so I think you should go first.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So I'm a Gringo Spaniard kid. I grew up watching U.S. sports, things like that. I grew up watching American. My parents are Spanish, and I just got really, really, really into La Liga, into Atletico, in my very early, like I'd say my very early teens, to the point where I would obsessively read, Marca.com, AS.com, all the sites, and I never had any formal Spanish education, but from reading so much, I would absorb all these words, and I decided that was my goal. I really wanted to end up at one of those places, work in sports. So I got my break at AS. It's kind of weird to say it in English. I landed at the Atletico section. I was just an intern there, and things worked out. That's where I landed. They didn't think I was going to stick around very long, but that internship eventually evolved into me working there. And back then the print, it was a beautiful time because print was big. There was the digital side of it all, but it was so cool just doing those long waits, those for Atletico players to show up at an airport to try to get like news and have that deadline. That doesn't exist anymore. Everything's so digitalized now. So I'm very happy I got to experience that. And just know that rush of, man, you have to get everything in by midnight, and just really have that. And I think it's really cool now that we have everything digitalized too, and everybody can partake. And thankfully, we can do things like this, which is so cool. I'm so happy that we're doing this podcast, that you guys are doing it. Yeah, I was just getting to go do that thing, like talk to, communicate with Atletico journalists from all over the world. This was before the Fabrizio Romanos, all this, now they're just like whatever voodoo they're doing for their info. I don't know, man, but this is another time, man. It was really cool. And now I live in Miami since my 30s, and I've been in AS and Marca, which is where I worked with Jeremy for a while. And then that's basically been more of living at life as an Atletico fan. I have my Cholo behind me here with my Tupac and Biggie back there, my totem, my dogs, all that stuff.
That's the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, exactly. It's the most, like, when people come to the house, they're like, what is this? But yeah, I've gotten to experience this life is different. It's very cool to still see Coque, see Jimenez, still see Cholo there, of course, see people from the time I was there. And and just embracing. I definitely miss it, but I live definitely absorb information. It's a very different, just a very different path from the past for sure. But I'm very happy I got to live that, and it's gotten to know the ins and outs of that whole world. And it's very, very cool. So could give the floor to Nic now once.
Thanks, Dani. I think my journey is a bit of it's a bit different. So you have the Spanish name. I don't have the Spanish name, but I am also Spanish, which is hard to believe sometimes, but I am. I was born in Spain, so and my
Obviously.
Obviously. And my Spanish family is an Atletico family, so it was never it wasn't an option. There's baby photos of me in red and white. I went to the Calderón when I was first, I think like 7 or something like that. I watched an incredible game, by the way, my first ever game in the Calderón. We were 2-0 down to Villarreal. Pepe Reina was Villarreal's goalkeeper, scores an incredible own goal. And then this young man comes on, Fernando Torres, and scores 2 goals, and we win 3-2. That was my first ever game in the Calderón itself. So I've always been a massive Atletico Madrid fan. It's always been a part of me. And when I got my first full-time job, I became with my first pay packet. I went and I bought my club membership, my Socio Abonado, and with that, I gave me the permission to go travel to away games. And I was young and keen, and my mum was begging me not to go because she said, "Oh, you'll get into fights with hooligans and all sorts of things." And I was like, "I don't think it's going to be like that." And I chose to go to the Atletico Madrid game against PSV in early 2016. So right at the start of that incredible run. And I went on the Atletico Madrid subreddit, which is an incredible place. If no one's been there, you should check it out. It's another good little place for Athletic guys to hang out. And our friend, because I think we all know him, Arthur, replied to me and was like, "I'm going to be at that game too." And I was like, "Fantastic! I won't be alone. I will know someone." But and then I met up with Arthur, and we were there, and then. There was a bit of an interruption, and I'm not going to say who, but I think we all know him as well. His name starts with B. Was pulled to one side by the police because he'd set off a flare, and the Dutch police were not happy with that.
Those are the everyday stories.
But I'm not going to say it because he works in this world, and I don't want to get him into any trouble. And I was with Nick Poskett as well, and I had an incredible two days, really. And Nick Poskett worked very hard to recruit me into AtléticoFans, which was the news website that he was helping run. And I helped Nick a lot with that for about a year and a half before he said, "Look, I've just got too much on at work and my personal life, and can you just take over?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. This means a lot to me. This gang that we've got here." But it was becoming increasingly hard to get people to write articles, and I felt we weren't really we weren't in the right space. We weren't doing news like you were doing, Danny, because you had sort of the network of us, and you actually got to go out there and do all these sort of things. And I saw that the actual benefit of an English-speaking Atleti account it basically just turned into the Twitter account, was to connect Atletico fans who didn't speak Spanish as their native tongue, but also to sort of, and I used to talk about this with Nick as we were effectively missionaries. It was sort of go out and convert the unbelievers and bring people into the fold of Cholo and bring people in there. And to do that, you had to explain what it all was, what it means to be an Atletico fan. I think a lot of us feel it intuitively, but you want to know more and take understanding. So, for example, I would spend a long time doing sort of Twitter threads on why people were so upset about our badge changing, because a lot of people who are new to the club would just be like, "Oh, it's just a badge change. The new one looks fine. It looks, like well designed and whatever." But that wasn't the point. Like, that's not what upset so many people. And I covered the end of the Calderón, which was just unbelievably emotional. The start of the Metropolitano. And I would make a real effort, especially to go out to away games, because that was often where you would get these people. And I met some incredible people there. I'm still a member of the Scottish Peña, Indios of Caledonia, who are some of the wildest bunch ever on away games. And they're brilliant. And they are 75% Scottish as opposed to 25% Spanish. I met the London Peña, the Britannia, with the British one. Fantastic guys. There's Ash, who, if you've never met Ash, she is a New York-based flight attendant who flies to like every game.
I know Ash. Yeah.
Crazy. I met all these people, and it was just fantastic to build up this sort of community. And then sadly, it was sort of mixture of things of the Twitter account getting suspended for playing a recording that I had of a warm-up in the Metropolitano, and everyone immediately started blaming Tebas, which I'm here for. I'm up for that. But the reality of that case was actually that it was only entertainment music, because AC/DC's Thunderstruck was playing in the background, and they hit me with the strikes and deleted the account. But also, just again, kind of like Nic Lawley, just career and start taking over, and you can't spend every waking moment hanging on to see what Diego Costa's doing about when he's back in Brazil. That's too much stress. But I still watch Atleti. I'm still in WhatsApp groups with like you, Ricky, cursing when something wrong happens, or like celebrating it, and all these fantastic things.
We've got this tradition that I think Nick started. Every time that Real Madrid goes down in a game, there's radio silence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nobody can talk in the group chat until Real Madrid lose that match, and then we can all celebrate together. Otherwise,
our Swedish friend in particular needs to get a bit better at doing that. Let's put it that way.
Yes, we do have these traditions on our group chat. Yeah, they're great. They're great. And what a wonderful array of memories. I can remember, Nick, I think especially, I think that you were at the last pre-pandemic away game, that famous Liverpool game, and you were talking about epic games. Yeah, that one has to be up there. Which one would you say is your best Atleti away memory? Because I think that fans can sort of connect to the away days, because a lot of English-speaking fans do like traveling where Atletico goes.
I completely agree. I think the away days is where that community became very real. And through the account, do you remember when you could I'm still calling it Twitter, but like you could live stream on Twitter. I would do live streams as we were entering towards the stadium with the choreo, with everyone being carried through, and I used to get a lot of attention and get people quite hyped for the games, I felt, as well, who weren't there. But yeah, you're so right. The people who are there, it's incredible. And I think it was the 11th of March 2020. I remember it so clearly.
Sure was.
I mean, in parts I remember it for all the bad reasons, because my phone ran out of battery. When I got back to the hotel, I plugged in, and it was all, US bans all flights from Europe. WHO declares a global pandemic, like all of that sort of stuff. So there's that side. But it was also one of the most incredible football games ever. And I think it got a lot of us Atletico fans through the first part of the pandemic, was just rewatching the highlights of that. But for me, it wasn't the best game, because if anyone's been to an away game, you know this. They are exhausting for the fans. It's a whole day. You're jumping around, you're drinking, you're jumping around, you're singing, your voice goes. I remember in Anfield, I think by about minute 5, I was pretty much hoarse. And Llorente scores. The key thing about that game is also Saul scores and is ruled offside just before full time. Yeah. And everyone in the away end, and you can ask anyone who was there, and they'll back me up on this, we all thought that had gone in. We didn't know that was disallowed. So we thought we'd gone through. It took 2-3 minutes for us to realize that hadn't happened. You don't get that on the cameras. You don't get that when you're watching on TV. You get this. And then Llorente scores, of course, and we go wild. But then Llorente scores the second one. And I just ragdolled at that point. I was just being pushed around, like unable to sort of comprehend what was happening. And then Morata scores right in front of us and slides in front of us. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. But I think my most favorite moment of all time is Munich 2016. Wow. I was there, and I was in the front row of all the fans. And the president of the 17 de Mayo Peña was right next to me. And if you remember, Torres misses a penalty in like minute 85. And the president is next to me, just starts weeping. like uncontrollably weeping. And I'm having to explain to him, like, we're still going through. Like, as it stands, we're still through. And he's just crying. Full time goes, and he's still just crying. Like, we're all celebrating, but he's like refusing to accept it. And I thought that was the most beautiful sort of like Atleti experience ever. And that was a wild one. But yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I'm now getting involved to go on away trips again.
So what would it be for you, Danny? I know you've got a lot of memories as a beat reporter, but maybe the fan ones. Do you have one in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I think one that ties in that I think about a lot is I have to take it more back to Hamburg 2010.
Oh man.
When back to the Lucy days.
All right.
I remember, and that was
I cried so much.
Yeah, that was a very that was particularly because that was still in our everything always goes wrong era. Absolutely, like since the doblete days back in the 90s, like everything it was just constantly getting shot on, right? And then you have this final that we make it to, and we're playing Europa League final. I think it was the first ever. It was like rebranded, and we go there, and it's against Fulham, and we score, they score. And it was just incredible because we go into the extra time and then we get a goal in the 117, I think, minute right before the penalties. And I remember sitting there and just saying like, wow, this when the game was over, the confetti was going, everything. I just remember like, wow, like I did get a little tear because I was like, this is the most I'm ever going to see, right? Because if you look at
exactly, yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Atletico 20
at last one title, at least one.
They told you you're going to be in the Champions League, you're going to be at the UCL final in 2014 and 2016, and you're going to win a league. You're going to be like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Okay. Sure. And unicorns.
Like, what are you talking about? It's impossible, right? Nobody knew that. Right. We would have this, Cholo and man, as much as we wanted Cholo to work out when he arrived, it's like we never saw something like this coming, right? And sometimes, I mean, again, I fully respect like what you guys are saying, like in the chats with Real Madrid goes and not saying anything. Like I fully follow that, but part of me also wants to not believe those things, right? And sometimes I defy them. And I was in Lisbon 2014 for work. I was in Lisbon, in Milan 2016, actually with Arthur, we mentioned earlier, as a fan. We all know how that went. And then and now in March, I was there for our horrible week, and I was at the stadium for the Julian, penalty. I was there for the Barca game after, and I was just thinking, like, man, like, I'm never gonna go to another derby of any kind again, that's for sure. But I was also thinking, like, wow, the Hamburg thing, like, was I feeling that? Because I really. But I mean, obviously the leagues happened and everything, but yeah, the Hamburg thing was just really special. It was like, we made it here, we have to win, we did it, and that's why I was so optimistic in Lisbon. I really thought they were going to make a Disney movie about us that 2013-14 season with a double. Like, man, I don't know. It was a great precedent, but also a bad one. And then to add a funny anecdote from that year, in 2010, so that was Quique Sanchez Flores was the coach. I remember Quique asked to have a lunch with us and with the Atletico section and the head people of the paper, and he said, guys, like the headlines you guys are publishing, like, you're putting pressure on us. Like, you actually expect us to beat Inter. He had zero. Like, he's like, we're not going to win this game. Like, I don't know why you guys are. I mean, he's like, I know you guys have to sell papers and whatever, but he's like, you guys are actually making us seem like the favorites here. Like, we are not. And then, that was another. I wasn't there for that one, but man, that was a great memory. Also winning that. So yeah.
That's a great one.
Wow.
What a story.
That was great. To go back just a second to the 2013-14 season, I was at that time still relatively new to Atletico and to football in general. I came upon it as an American. I watched a lot of American sports when I was a kid, so it was something that I discovered organically on my own. That entire season felt like a fever dream. The way Atletico started, just flying out of the traps.
Can I ask a question of everyone here about that season? When did you believe? Like, was there a point where you believed? And if so, like, what was? I always ask this of different Atleti fans, and everyone has a different moment. Like, it'll be like, oh, the Bilbao game, the Valencia game, when Messi's goal was ruled offside, whatever. Like, people have.
I was at the Camp Nou. I've got my press pass signed by Simeone from that day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a crazy memento to have. And it's the one of the 2 autographs I have from Simeone. I almost got kicked out of the Camp Nou for asking him for that autograph. But I felt so many times that season that everything was going to fall to pieces, like I've never felt before. Like that Levante game, I think that was the heartbreaker. The beginning of that game when Messi. That Messi moment that you were mentioning before, so many moments of doubt. I really, it took me by surprise. I've only cried twice in a football stadium, and it was once in Hamburg, where I was just bawling because I thought I was never going to live something like that in my lifetime. I seriously got to the point where I thought I was never going to see Atletico win a trophy. I mean, I had seen the Copa del Rey disasters, Atletico in Segunda. It was so much heartbreak. That was like, it was like redemption. It felt like, okay, at least I've had my share. And then when the Barca moment came, that final showdown in the Camp Nou, and you see that things go so wrong from the beginning until the Godin goal. I mean, I just couldn't believe that was going to go our way. It just felt surreal, and that's the second time I cried, and it was very embarrassing because I was trying to hold it back. I was with Juan Gato. You worked with Juan Gato, haven't you, Dani? And it was like, yeah, man. If there was ever a day to cry in a press box, it's today. I said, don't worry about it. I remember writing the match report in Lisbon, writing the match report in Milan, emotionless, just trying to focus and center, and knowing that didn't go our way, but because I never believed that it was going to come true. It seemed such an uphill battle. It felt like out of our hands every time we were close to grabbing the Liga trophy. That's why I enjoy Liga trophies so much. They're so hard to get.
Yeah, personally, I think back then it was just such a. I mean, Real Madrid and Barca are still the powerhouses that they are, obviously, and for different ways. Back then we were still with the Real Madrid of they were like the décima. They kept saying like, when is the décima? The 10th's gonna come, the 10th cup. We were still in that era, but I was just so things were going so right for us. Things had never gone wrong for both of them at the same time. And I think when we were up, I think at one point it was 6 or 7 points in I think it was I think it was I don't know if it was early in the second Vuelta. That's when I was like, wow, like this can happen. And there was the Malaga game, I believe, that the before last game that we lost, which is why Barca could win the Liga.
We drew. We
drew, but things
we won.
It
felt like a loss.
It did.
Right.
Toby Alderweireld scored the equalizer 15 minutes from time.
Yes.
And then Willy Caballero out of nowhere stops Adrian Lopez's shot in stoppage time. Adrian should have won us the league.
Yes.
I curse his name every time I hear it.
Same.
I believe Willy Caballero cost us that Champions League. Like, that's a very firmly held belief of mine.
Exactly, because then we had to go all out. We had to make such a huge effort in that game, and we could have rested. And who knows? Maybe we wouldn't have had to do the whole like Diego Costa plasma thing for the final.
The horse placenta.
Like, not that would have impacted him.
The horse placenta.
Yeah. So I think that was that. But yeah, I think I was like, wow, like let's do it. Yeah, that's when I thought that we could actually pull it off, and we did, which is amazing.
Final question, guys, because
amazing.
we've had you much longer than we promised. Don't want to keep you so long. I want to know what you think about this Atleti. What do you think about the squad that almost did something really big this year, and that seems to be on its way towards an even better next season, or at least that's the hope that the Simeone era is far from over, and it's just been rejuvenated. I don't know if you agree with this assessment and how you see the team. How do you see things moving forward for next season, and how have you gone through this period of heartbreak these last weeks?
I don't know if Nick, if you want to take it first, or
yeah, sure, I'll go first. I think in many ways, I look at the team that we've got now, and I'm like, this is the best group that we've ever had, talent-wise, maybe that I've ever seen. And like people say, how dare you? We used to have Falcao, we used to have whatever. I think we do, but I think we also. I saw a stat where it was actually the value of our squad has actually been dropping since a sort of height of like 2019, 2020. And you can see that. And I think we've also got one of the oldest squads around in Europe right now. I saw another stat. And I think that does sort of is the duality of Atleti in many ways, is the way that we do have this unbelievable talent. We've got Cholito, we've got Alvarez. I think is just such a talented man. We've got really good stuff coming through with Barrios, etc. But we are lacking the key things that I think Simeone has historically relied on, which is an ultra safe defense. And to be fair, we've got a really good version of Oblak back, which we hadn't had for a few seasons. But I think our defense has made the right kind of investments in places like Lenormand. I think is a fantastic addition to the team, etc. But we haven't been able to sort of have that solidity. And I've got Atletico fans who are saying, oh, that's because Gabi was this sort of centurion who would like run the place so disciplined, and Koke is fantastic and a fantastic player, but he doesn't do the same thing. I hear all of that. I don't think that's quite it. I just don't think it's the same solidity that back four of 2014 gave you. If you look at that four, they were just, I hold them in such high esteem that it's just hard to describe. I think we got some really good stuff. I think we had a dreadful 3 weeks, and that has really soured the mood. And it wasn't just the dreadful because of the results, but it was because of the way it happened. I felt horrific after the Alvarez incident. I was watching it in the Peña in London. And also here, I just want to say just a quick interlude. If you live abroad and you have a Peña near you, go to your Peña. It is the most fun. It was about 50 of us crammed into a small room in a pub in London. Atleti scarves and flags everywhere on the walls. It's fantastic. Even in a loss, it's just a fantastic experience. Anyway, that game, that way that they stole that, and I don't care. FIFA, UEFA, come at me, sue me. I don't care. I've got no money. Come at me. They stole that in a horrific way. There's just no physical way you can communicate what's happening between the ref and VAR in the 27 seconds that it took between, whatever. And I felt so impotent and like helpless, and it just made me like fall out of love, not with Atleti. I'll never fall out of love with Atleti, but with football itself. And that really, I think, had an effect on everyone, both in the changing rooms, but also in the fans. And there's no club in the world that relies more on the fans feeling something than Atleti. And I think that combination has made us think, oh, this was all a disaster. The reality is we've got more than 66 points in La Liga, which we've done 11 times before, 10 of which under Cholo. So I think we are in a great place. We need to come back and just put that aside. We need to deal with the realities of and get football cleaned up. And I'm not talking about that as we record this, I don't know when this is going out, but Real Madrid are doing some hysterical things online.
Hilarious. Oh my God, it's embarrassing for them.
Fantastic stuff. But the reality is there is a problem, I think, and it needs to be fixed for us to be able to compete fairly. And at that point, I do think that Atleti will bring home a big title next season. So I'm excited for it. And it might even come this season in the summer when it's going to be over in the States. And I bet you there'll be a lot of new Atletico fans developing in the US. So I hope they find this podcast and start to learn what it is to be an Atletico fan from this. But yeah, that's me. Dani, over to you.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I think that's a great to emphasize the point that Real Madrid game, the penalty shootout, it did inevitably. It was just such a WTF moment in every way possible that, of course, it completely impacted everything that came afterwards. And we have to remember that was the first thing, right? After that, it was like, oh, La Liga, La Copa is still possible. Oh, La Liga is still possible, and then that's when everything came down. In terms of the squad itself, I've always when people talk about Atletico spending and stuff, a team that is still an absolute money pit, and I don't know if money pit is the word, but maybe kind of kind of like a ditch where money just goes to evaporate, right? So it's never been a team that has liquidity. One thing they've done well, and for sure, and great part with Cholo has been basically being able to use the debt, but also stay competitive. But with this, it's basically been transfers in, a very strict. One person goes in for one person that leaves. We've had obstacles. The Joao obviously was a huge obstacle in kind of finding that next piece. Luckily, we got Julian this year, who's a sure thing. Been incredible. But when you're at this level and you have a good Barca squad or a good Real Madrid squad, which wasn't the case in 2013-14, you have to start looking at the little details, right? You love these players like Javi Galan, man, Javi Galan on Real Sociedad was killing it. He would kill it on Real Sociedad this year. Does he kill it on our side? No, he doesn't. Is he a good player? He's a good player, but he's not going to get you over the edge over Real Madrid, over Barca, right? For example, that's just single him out particularly. But you look at, I love Reinildo. I love these players. You start to really kind of, really have infatuate yourself with them. But that's the little differences are there, right? It's really hard to get that depth that we got in attack. I loved our attack this year, but I would say to end, absolutely. Just like Nick was saying too, improve our defense and get that other player to play with Coque and Barrios in midfield. De Paul, I like De Paul, but De Paul is not really he's more of our creator, right, in a way. So I'd like to see more of a guy to play with Barrios in the pivot, in the double, and I think once we get that and we get the defense fixed up, like Nick was saying as well, then I think we'll be good, and it's exciting times. I think they're doing a good job with that. So.
Man, what are we doing here? We should leave the show in their hands.
Right? We got it all wrong.
We've retired from this world. We've retired. Right?
Guys, thank you for coming on board in the first episode. We couldn't have chosen better guests to have here, and this is your home. Feel free to drop by whenever you just want to have a good rant.
100%.
And it's great to see the two of you. Can't wait to see the two of you in person and give you a big hug, man. I love you guys to death. And really miss you. Just seeing more of you.
Yeah, man. Atleti Podcast. I'm happy you guys are here, man. This is awesome. It's exciting stuff.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Great to see you. Thanks for
coming
on.
Soon.
All right, guys.
That was.
Like you said, I just turned the show over to them.
Yeah. I mean we got our money's worth with those two. I just wanted to add to what they were saying that I do have the feeling that fans have grown a little bit spoiled by the trajectory of this incredible decade and a little bit more that Simeone has been the head coach and right now what used to be more than enough just doesn't make the cut, and we seem to be having this constant kicking the tires attitude of, what Danny was saying. Javi Galan's great. Riquelme's really good to see him play. Reinildo's a solid defense, but wouldn't it be nice to have an upgrade from there? So right now we're at this point where we know that Atlético de Madrid is going to be a good team, but we're aiming at greatness. And when you aim at greatness, you really need to have those players that take you to the promised land. And that's the question, whether the club is going to make ends meet and is going to find the resources, is going to have the convincing power to bring players. Simeone is a huge asset for the club. Players like Julian Alvarez would have never signed for Atlético de Madrid if it weren't for having Simeone as a coach. For all of those doubters that say maybe it's time for Simeone to hand the keys over to someone else, he's a reason why most of these great players want to play for Atletico. And when you were hearing, I don't know if it was Cuti Romero or Enzo Fernandez, that they were talking about a possible move to La Liga, that stinks Cholo Simeone all around. It's like, I don't want to play Liga. I want to play for Cholo Simeone. It's they want to try to get a little bit of that Simeone magic, because I'm challenging somebody in the comment section to name me a single player that has evolved significantly in their career after leaving Atlético de Madrid under Cholo's helm. There isn't a single player that I can think of, besides maybe Diego Costa's stint, but Diego Costa was just a financial decision that was outside of Simeone's hands. I don't think there's a single player that has significantly improved their career once they jump ship or they've moved away from Atletico to another squad. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about the upcoming year. From what I'm hearing, people are more than optimistic. I think I don't know if they're being realistic, because 4 or 5 big signings sounds like a lot of money, and I don't know if Atletico pockets are that deep. But it's a wait and see situation. There's a lot of excitement with the amount of business that Atlético Madrid is attracting and how it's giving them a competitive edge, also in the financial side, that they haven't had until this moment. And the Google deal that is very recent, the Red Bull deal, maybe we'll have time Nike. To dive into that. The Nike renewal, making Atletico the third, I think, highest paid football club in the world, going ahead of Chelsea and other big teams. All of that is potential investment in new players and new signings, and I think that's very exciting. And now that the third position seems to be secured after the Rayo win. Maybe we can gloss over the Rayo win for a little bit. I think it's time to look a little bit ahead and see what's in the future. I don't know how you see it. If you agree with what Nick and Danny were telling us.
I do. I think this has been a good season for Atletico, especially after last season when it was embarrassing to watch our defense. We went to Dortmund and our defense was a combined, I think, 93 years old.
Yeah.
It's a club in the last 8 of the Champions League, and you're relying on Axel Witsel, Cesar Azpilicueta, Mario Hermoso. God bless him, but a ticking time bomb. You're relying on defenders of that caliber to try to get you to a semifinal, and it's just not doable. To your point about how many players come here and then leave, and their careers just aren't really the same after leaving Atletico. That is probably the best quality of Cholo Simeone, is that he is able to maximize his squads for one reason or another, and we don't have to get into it in this episode, but routinely Simeone has left 3 or 4 players short every year.
He doesn't manage to get every single player to click, but most of them it's major hits. I mean, I'm thinking, for example, of this kid Vermeeren or some other case of promising talent that comes and just burns out or just doesn't seem to be the right fit and never gets the playing time that you can get to evaluate the player and see the player is going to have a career here. They're gone before their career as a Rojiblanco even gets to start. That's why I'm very happy for Sorloth this season, because he's managed to find his place. He's getting some recognition for his important role within the team, and I think it's really interesting that Atletico is managing to piece together a team that obviously has some glaring holes, some necessities. Your point about the defense having been only half upgraded from last season, I couldn't agree more. I think we're in the right direction, but we're still a little bit far off.
I think we have taken positive steps this season for sure. Our defense up until I want to say February was actually quite good. Oblak could still win his 6th Zamora, which would be the most of any keeper in La Liga history. That would be incredible. I don't think we kind of have a tendency at this point, even hardcore Atletico fans have a tendency at this point to gloss over what Jan Oblak has achieved at this club. Greatest goalkeeper in our history, bar none. I think he's top 5 in appearances. I don't remember exactly where he is right now, but he's top 5 in appearances. Our second captain for several years now. And I thought he played really well against Rayo on Thursday night, which we'll gloss over that game in just a moment. But we have definitely taken positive steps. I know we exited the Champions League round earlier this season. We left the Copa del Rey at the same stage, and we're probably only going to move up one place in La Liga. But the vibes are so much better. The aura is so much better.
You've got your stats right, man. The top 4, he just surpassed Tomás Viñones. Tomás Viñones is a team manager, the one that normally appears in the pre-match interview. And he's played 488 games for Atlético Madrid. Tomás Viñones is 483. But what's amazing is that Atletico has 4 players that are still playing for Atlético Madrid in the top 10 of this ranking. And under Simeone, I think the majority of the top 20 are players that have played for Simeone. So that's incredible. That talks about the legacy, the lasting legacy. That Simeone is still building and that we're still enjoying. We're still in the
we are living through history with Simeone.
Exactly.
Each year that he coaches, this is year 13, forever by modern standards. Each year that he coaches, each year that soldiers like Koke and Josema Jimenez and Oblak stay here. Angel Correa may or may not leave this summer. We'll probably talk about that on a upcoming episode. But those 4 players, just Griezmann too, and Griezmann has a bit more of a complicated legacy given that he left and came back. Ultimately becoming our top scorer. But those 5 players are the ones who come to mind as those who are part of this living history.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why our level has improved this season is because of a player we spoke about with Nick and Dani, Julian Alvarez, Ricky. La Araña, what a player. 15 goals in La Liga now after scoring yesterday. Beautiful finish for the 3rd goal against Rayo.
And especially the dominance. You're seeing a game-changing player and one of a world top-class player, and we're not that used to having that kind of player starting a career at Atletico. We get some of those. I mean, the Suarez that showed up at Atlético Madrid was, I'm not going to say washed up, but he was kind of in his final. He was past his prime, and for example, I'm just going to talk about 3 players. Diego Costa was still on the rise. Fernando Torres was on the rise. Falcao was come and then gone, and because he was in the hands of his agents and he couldn't stay and develop a career. The story with Julian Alvarez is that it's been so, in my opinion, unexpectedly successful that's what I'm surprised about. I wasn't expecting Julian to have such a deep impact in the team in such an immediate way. I thought there was going to be more of an adapting curve, and his talent is really, really a perfect fit for Atletico. That way of finishing, that way of fighting balls that don't seem to be fightable, and scoring goals that are just close to impossible to score. The whole package of Julian Alvarez is something that is really putting Atletico back on the map. I think it's fundamental to have a player like Julian, and the people the people at the offices, the management of the club have the feeling that they can bring another world-class star, and that's where I'm absolutely surprised, because this money-constrained Atletico that we've seen in the past seasons seem to have gone over that financial hump, and they're finally willing to make that investment and maybe bring an interesting player like, I don't know, Gyökeres from Sporting Portugal is one of the players that comes to mind. What a perfect fit he would be. That would probably not leave space for Sorloth on the squad. So it's a little bit of squad design. What do you have to let go to make space? What players do you really want to keep and are going to be the core of your team moving forward? Many of the signings, wanting to consolidate that. It's going to be an interesting year to talk about. And we thought we couldn't fill an hour talking about Atletico.
We're like at an hour 10 right now, man.
We could go on for 2 full hours here.
Oh, we really could. You mentioned Sorloth there, and I did want to speak about him briefly. He's had a nice season. I think there is a role for him in this squad. I didn't pay the 35 million. I didn't pay his release clause from Villarreal. That wasn't my idea. I wasn't a huge fan of his signing, and he's not quite good enough to be a regular starter here. Simeone realized that very quickly. Simeone is rarely wrong about these things, but his goals off the bench have been so huge at different points this season. He's averaging close to a goal every 90 minutes in La Liga. Scored in the 3rd minute yesterday with a towering near post header inside 3 minutes. The assist from Giuliano Simeone, who we could dedicate an entire episode to, just what Cholito has brought to this year's squad so unexpectedly. What a pleasant surprise he has been. But Sorloth, I think, has a role next year.
Comparing the numbers that Sorloth has with the amount of starts that he's been rewarded with. But I agree with your assessment. I agree that his role as a substitute player that can really undermine worn out defenses in second halves is making a much bigger impact than if you have Sorloth consistently playing as a starter. Maybe you can do that in certain matches like yesterday, and it's very effective and very nice to see. But I think in general, everybody except maybe Sorloth can agree that his impact as a substitute player has been one of the most positive news of the season.
Yeah, it's unexpected roles, right? And it speaks well of him professionally that he has publicly said, I didn't love this idea at first, but Cholo Simeone spoke to me man to man, and I now accept this role. I like to score goals. It's working. The team has, earlier in the season, certainly not as much now, but the team has been winning when I've been scoring goals. I just don't think the ceiling is terribly high with Sorloth as your 9. I think another 9 of the correct level, the proper level, has to come in this summer. I think that is pretty high on the club's to-do list. Conor Gallagher, we haven't spoken about El Pitbull yet.
He's an exciting player. I'm not very sure if he's a most talented player on the squad, but he's certainly extremely exciting because he brings this bang bang kind of attitude to the team that the team seemed to miss so much. Dani was talking about Gabi and his role as an enforcer for Simeone. I think that Gallagher has fulfilled that role in this season of having someone that is a hard hitter, that is a brave player, and those kind of players are immediate fits for the stands. They really enjoy those players that seem to give it their all, despite sometimes not playing their best football. They'll be rewarded for just trying. Gladiators are always welcome in the Metropolitano.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's been kind of a weird season for Gallagher. He comes over in August. He's never played abroad before.
He does,
the second English player to play for us after Kieran Trippier, who I will always love forever.
You have to try to find a way of getting Trippier on the podcast. I mean, it would be
we do
phenomenal. Yeah, it would be phenomenal.
Would love to talk to him about his time at Atleti, because that was a transfer that came out of nowhere as well. But when Gallagher arrives, it's to fulfill one role, and he's ended up fulfilling another because he was signed to play in the 3-5-2, and we haven't played a 3-5-2 since October. So he's playing as kind of this makeshift left midfielder. It's on his off foot, he's on his right foot, on the left side. He hasn't been able to crash the box quite as much, but when we've been able to get him in the area, he's dangerous.
Yeah,
that's his natural inclination. He's an attacking midfielder.
It was like for a lot of times he's had to play or fulfill a role that was normally reserved for Koke, and we know that Koke is at the end of his career, and he's also not at his physical prime, so that's giving Gallagher more play time in that area. But when we saw him score that goal with that very, very intelligent move of sort of moving the central defenders towards one of the posts and Gallagher coming from the back, it reminded me so much to Raul Garcia. And if Atletico managed to play Gallagher in a position similar to Raul Garcia, that can really click, and that can really elevate Gallagher to a new level of importance within the team. That would be incredible to have that kind of player that has some of the traits that we enjoyed so much in Raul Garcia. I think yesterday seeing the goal was like, oh my God, it's bringing you back 5 or 6 years to those years where Raul Garcia was really ripping it, and Raul Garcia was a player that really struggled during his first seasons as an Atletico, got severely booed for an entire season, and went through a real ordeal before he found his place on the pitch, and luckily enough, several coaches, and the last one, Simeone, trusted that he would evolve into the kind of player that he ultimately turned into. So let's hope to see that next step, that next season of Gallagher, once he's already adapted to the country, to the competition, and see that next move. It will be very exciting to experience.
We haven't had a player like Rulo since Rulo, and
Exactly,
everything he brought to the last 2 years he was here before he went to Athletic, everything he brought to those teams, you didn't want to mess with him. You didn't want to step to him or Gabby. Or Thiago, really, or Godin, just the steel and the spine of that team. To Nick's point earlier, we haven't really quite recovered that. It's very difficult to find. It was a scenario where Simeone arrives and just everything clicks.
The current leadership in the dressing room is a little bit of, they're more choir boys than the ones the bad boys we had in the past.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine Koke or Griezmann or even Julian getting into a scrap over something that Vinicius says in the sideline. So we do need also those players to enforce respect, and what you said, to have that spine and to carry the badge with the honor that the fans expect the team to carry itself around the pitches on good nights and on bad nights when things get rough, to have someone there to stand up for the team, and we're still finding that kind of player that is going to have that attitude. I think that maybe if Baena comes next season, that could be one of those hot-blooded signings that already has a past history, for example, with Real Madrid, and is going to be an instant fit and perfect for the fan base to fall in love with a player. But let's wait and see what happens.
Let's wait and see. All right, man. I think we should leave it there. We've been going for a while.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap up. I had something prepared, but we'll talk about it in the next show.
Yes,
we'll start to talk about maybe we can have a spotlight on specific matches. Nick and Dani have brought up quite a few. You've also mentioned something that Nick said today. I'm going to pick it up there when we talk about that famous match, because he's mentioned it a couple of times, and I would like to spend a few minutes talking about that and about so many other things. It's been great to spend this hour with you, man, and
this has been
can't
fantastic.
wait for next week to come around and have a chat again.
The first episode of many. Ricky Menéndez, Jeremy Beren here with you for That Atleti Podcast, and we will chat with you all again next time. Adios.